Hello and welcome to a very special edition of Bulldogs Unleashed this week, our weekly look at the club and the NRL from behind the scenes, brought to you by Reclaim the Game. What's very special this week is we have a guest who is not a former Bulldogs player. This could be the start of a beautiful friendship or it could be the end of one. We'll find out in the next hour or so, but let me introduce Reni Maitua coming back to join the fold for this show. Good to have you, mate.
Thanks, Bill. It's good to be here, mate. Good to sit next to the big man too.
And this is our exception to the rule. Tim Mannah, it's good to have you in, mate.
Thanks, Woody. Good to be here. Obviously, it's well documented how much I love the club growing up, and it's good to be involved in this.
Yeah, and I can't imagine any Bulldogs fans begrudging your appearance on this panel, mate. They might have been upset with you a few times over the years, but we'll talk about that later. And, of course, Luke Goodwin, as usual, is here to look at the game of last weekend and the game that's coming up, and we'll have a look at the team list as well. So let's start with that. Lukey, firstly, there's some massive ins for this week. If you can take us through that and what condition they're in, because I know in one case, Tavita Pangai, there was a lot of conjecture about when he was coming back.
Yeah, that's right. No, it's been well documented. We've had 5 middles out and we've had an international forward pack sitting on the bench. And we're not the only club that has injuries, but it did hit us all at the same time. So we've got Big Tavita back. He's pulled up. He's been training, doing a lot of rehab with Ruben, our sprints coach. So his calf's a lot better. Ray Fatala-Mariner and Kicks is back from their HIAs. So pretty exciting. And we've got Braden Burns who's taken over from the Fox. So it gives us a lot more depth, that's for sure.
Well, the back line has been very good in New South Wales Cup, so I guess there were a few options there, weren't there? And Braden apparently has been exceptional, though. Yeah,
he's been 18th, 19th man the last couple of weeks. And Burns, he's very experienced, and he's been leading our reserve grade team well. They're unbeaten. So, it's his turn up, and that's what every club tries to do. It's next man up mentality. And, I know I spoke to him this morning. He's a bit excited.
Is there a temptation there? You got Tavita and Kickout back. Is there a temptation to number them 21, 22, or just to throw the opposition off, or is it just harder to do these? I remember back in the day, coaches used to play mind games and be like, I won't name them and just keep the opposition guessing. Is there that temptation still?
You've been around the game long enough to. 100%, mate. It happens. You know what happens. I like to think this was our team this week. Yeah. But no, for sure. I think we did that last week. We had a young debutant and was only an hour before the game that we announced it. So you got to take, as protect some young players at sometimes and not put a lot of pressure on them. But I know Ricky would have done it, and I know Brian Smith back in the day was big for it. So,
okay, let's get to last week's game, and Reni, I want to ask. There are 50-point games and there are 50-point games. I know you saw the game and I know you've played in games where obviously I'm sure at some stage or other you've conceded a big score as well as put one on another team, but it varies, doesn't it? There was a general feeling after last weekend's game against Souths that the 50 points they conceded wasn't as bad as other games. I know that sounds crazy, but if you can explain that.
Well, I mean, it was I went in with Luke's invitation to have a chat to the team the night before, so hopefully I didn't with that 50-point turnaround. But, they were really confident, and I spoke to Cameron, and he was really confident about how the boys were feeling. Obviously, missing a lot of middles it's very tough against us. They're front runners. They've got big boys in the middle. If you don't match them in the middle and they get away with it like they did, they're very hard to stop. The thing I like from the guys is that they didn't stop trying.
Yeah.
They were outclassed with probably better team, obviously, but, those long-range tries that Birdo scored, they kept trying and kept trying. So that's all you want to see as a Bulldog fan is a team that's resilient, who's going to keep turning up. You don't want to be on the end of a 50-point turnaround, but, this game this week against Parra, it's been a rivalry since the 80s. So it's up to them, especially having these guys back in the side, to turn things around.
I'll get to that in a minute because Parra had a very different kind of game and the mindsets from both clubs will be fascinating. But before we get onto that, I don't know, let's not whinge about the officiating. All that's been done on the day. You can go on forever. All we want's consistency, and it's passed. And a lot of people have conceded that maybe if a few calls had gone different ways, only the margin would have changed. Let's just say that. But it's fair to say, Luke, that there were two massive momentum swings in the game. It was fairly tight until, of course, Josh Addo-Carr goes down. something that the ref didn't stop the game for. And obviously he's up on the wing, so fair enough. I know that's a relatively subjective thing. But the second phase, when they were coming back in the second half, making a game of it at least, 26-6 went to 26-12, and there was a try disallowed before that. So then Jake Preston gets sin-binned for an offence that it turned out they threw out of court, basically. So he could well have stayed on the field, and it might have only just been a penalty. Anyway, those two things really did hurt the team. As Reni said, they still tried, but they conceded a few quick tries in each case. Early in the first half, one of those tries had what I thought was an obvious forward pass in it, but all that aside, what does Cameron Ciraldo look at? I know he wasn't happy. Is it because he thought they could have dealt with those setbacks better?
You always think you could deal with those setbacks better, that's for sure. I think in regards to the rules, just the clarity and consistency. So with the leg drop, we've seen a lot of them now. They invent a new name and a new penalty, during overtime, the more the game goes on. So when we looked at it, we didn't think there was nothing in it. So, and it obviously got thrown out. He didn't get sided. So that was a massive turning point. But like you said, we're not sitting here saying that, we could have won, might have been less. But yeah, it was definitely a turning point as long as they're consistent on the rules. But that's, with that rule at the moment, it's a bit inconsistent and teams don't know what a hip drop is. And God bless the refs. I don't think they know.
Nah.
So that's what's inconsistent.
I think it's a flavour of the month at the moment, the hip drop. And you wouldn't find, I guarantee you wouldn't find one team in the competition that's practicing a hip drop. No one's doing it. And if you want to go back in the videos, I reckon for the last 50 years, they've been part of the game. And what's happening is players are getting in a position to make a tackle. They get in the tackle, and your natural instinct is, I've got to take the legs out. So usually you make contact up top, you wait for your mate to come and take their legs out.
Yeah.
What's happening now is they're finding themselves in a position where, okay, I've made the tackle, he's still pumping his legs, I've got to find a way to get him down to the ground.
Yeah.
So I just get my body down to his legs and find a way to take his legs out.
Yeah.
So no one's doing it on purpose. There's no malice in it. It happens so quickly. But you're right, it's a flavour of the month. Yeah. Refs are focusing on that at the moment. And until they stop focusing, it's going to be a topic of conversation.
100%.
I'm going to explore tackles in more detail in another segment, and we'll broaden the conversation because I know in rugby at the moment, as in rugby union, for those who don't follow it, they are going through all kinds of angst regarding head contact, for example. And that game's reaching a really interesting pivotal point, and the Northern Hemisphere is driving it in terms of where contact should be made in tackles. And I think they're making a big problem for themselves, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, it's all interpretation, Bill. That's
the
problem.
thing.
Like union, there's so many, you're coming in from the side, you come from the back. It's whatever the ref sees, that's how he interprets the rule.
Yep.
So, and I'm scared that we're getting a bit like that with some of our rules.
And in that case, Reni, and this is hard, refs with good intuition for the game, and that's a hard ask, I think. On the run, lots of stuff going on at the same time. They can often sense when a bloke's milking or if someone else has intent or is actually something's just a mistake. It's not easy for a ref to do.
No, especially when you got Good Friday game, 35,000 people. The game happens so fast. There's a lot of collision. And the thing with the hip drop itself is there's probably another 10 or 15 that aren't pinged unless someone gets injured. It's just part of the game.
If he gets up,
if someone gets up, plays the ball, it's not a penalty.
No.
I think Luke Keary made the point that the little blokes quite often have their legs off the ground, hanging on to blokes like you, and it's very hard to insist, for example, that you must have a part of your body on the ground at all times when you're making a tackle because the halfbacks and stuff, they're going to get carried.
Well, your objective of any player is to get the attacker to the ground the most efficient way possible. And being in a high collision sport, there's going to be injury, and there's going to be things that go wrong. Jacob Preston's one was a strange one, and it was a big turning point for the game. We could have come back into it. However, like Timmy said, it's the flavour of the month, and it'll probably continue throughout the year, and then it'll go away next year.
For a game that's so against staying down and being like soccer, we encourage it a lot. Like we reward it. Like we just spoke about that tackle. It's if there's no injuries, a lot of times there's no penalties. But we're encouraging players to stay down because they'll get looked at. And then
it's funny. James Graham said the other day on another social media, he said that if that's the case, get the the stretcher out, get them off, and they can be an interchange.
I reckon
if you're going to lay down.
anytime someone stays down and gets a penalty, they should come off for 5 minutes.
It's like
That's my
soccer, isn't
theory.
it? Yeah, like-
Get them off 5 minutes. If they're really going to be staying down, you can earn the penalty, but also you're going to stand aside on 5 minutes.
We do it a lot with the crushers. People stand there.
and they
It's
jump
been good
back to their
lately because
feet.
people are thinking, play the ball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an interesting point. And let's get back to the mentality of it, though, all that aside, and what we talked about, and making sure your team, when they do get a setback or even concede a try off that setback, not allowing 2 or 3 more in that same space. How do you do that? Or is it just that you got Latrell Mitchell on the other side of the pitch? Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, when you got Latrell playing his 150th in front of a crowd like that, he was pretty unstoppable. One of that tries he set up where he threw it to his winger. That was incredible.
One-handed over people, hit him right on the chest.
He's look. Your objective again is once you concede points, is that you dig in for the next few sets. You get back into that arm wrestle, making sure that they don't get that roll on. It's very hard to stop a South side they're front runners. That's what they do. That's why they struggle against Penrith. Penrith puts them to the sword. They don't play off the back foot. So the biggest challenge for me, as a spectator, as a fan, was that we put them on the back foot and we had every chance of winning. Once they got in front, that's what they do best. Yeah.
Well, that brings us to Parramatta, and interesting response from a lot of the fans in the Eels game, Timmy, was the fact that they should have put the Tigers away. I mean, the poor old Tigers have, they've conceded quite a few games so far this year by less than 2 tries or in that vicinity. But that aside, what were your thoughts? How did you feel about what was actually still a win?
Well, I got my Bulldogs hat on today, so
I like it.
You kind of touched on it earlier. So there's games where you can get smoked on the scoreboard and feel that it wasn't that bad, and then there's games where you can win on the scoreboard and feel that you weren't that good. And I think Parramatta would have walked away from that game against Tigers thinking they weren't that good. Tigers, any other team other than Tigers probably wins that game. Tigers tried their backsides off, but they just couldn't execute. They put themselves in a position to. They got in those right field positions. They just couldn't score those tries. But barring an error by Charlie Staines at the end, they could have won that game. So Parramatta, they won it. They dodged a bullet. But I don't think they walk away from there too confident with the way they performed.
That's where they are at the moment, the poor Tigers. We've been there the last few years, so I did.
Don't worry.
Yeah, I feel for them. Nothing goes right. You're trying hard, and they've got a young team, new coaches. So, God, I feel for them. But yeah, you're right in what you say. Parramatta, the class shone out in the end.
Yeah.
Well, and on that point, we're not privy to the Eels team list at this point of the week, but what are you expecting this week? Reni, obviously the Bulldogs will be expecting a massive lift. I guess the Eels are too.
This was like the game when we started back in the early thousands that you'd look forward to. Parramatta game at Parramatta Stadium, Sunday afternoon. It was a rivalry, and we had to, we inherited the rivalry built in the 80s and the 90s, and it was just that game you look forward to. And then I was on the other end of it and played with Georgia at Para, and I look forward to playing the Dogs. But it's just the way it was. But this is the game that every fan looks forward to. It's the game that you have to win. You want bragging rights in Western Sydney, and it starts this week.
Yeah, I think Junior's back, so that's a big in.
Yeah, so you kind of count as
forward,
you look at Pangai Junior back for the Dogs, for Kikau, but Junior Bowler being back for Parramatta. Yeah. They definitely missed him. Like the last 2 weeks without him, you can see the difference he makes to that side.
Yeah,
that will be a massive clash, and I know we always say it, and the forwards certainly agree. But those two packs, one area where the Bulldogs I think have been clearly struggling this year is because they've been at least a couple of $1 million not playing each week out of the forward pack. So this week with a bit of that back, it'll be a terrific battle.
Yeah, I think it makes for a great matchup. Like that 4-pack now is a lot different when you look at the inclusions in that side. Even the benches, it's a healthy bench as well. So it's going to be pretty evenly matched. So I think no Addo Carr is a big loss. But Cameron Serrallo will be pretty happy with his 17 he's putting out there this week. It's a strong side, and they'll give it a red hot crack at Combank this week. Yeah.
Reid Marnie, how much pressure will he feel? He's going to want to win this game.
Yeah, he did say that he's. He did mark it off on the calendar.
Yeah.
And I heard Gutho speaking this morning on the radio, and he said, he'll be up for it, but we'll be sending Junior his way. So, there'll be a bit of friendly banter, I reckon, during the week.
I think he's a great asset to the club and a huge loss for Parra.
Yeah.
I think he's just fit. He fits the mold of a bulldog.
Well, he started here.
Yeah. Oh, he
Yeah.
did he?
Yeah, we got him from here.
He's just a bulldog, and the way he plays, and I think he loves these kind of challenges. If he didn't have someone like Harry Grant in front of him, he'd be the Queensland number 9.
Yeah.
So he's definitely up there, and he's a huge asset, and I think what we were missing at the club for a long time.
Yeah, he's one of my favourite players in the competition. Like, it's not just what he does on the field. Like, everyone knows what he does, but anyone that knows him off the field, he's a genuine person. He's a very he's a great human, which is a good start. But then he's a good leader. Yeah. He does all the little things at training. He trains hard. He looks after himself as a professional. He knows when to have fun, but he does everything exactly like you want from a leader of a footy team. And he's going to have a huge future. Like Reni said, I think it's a massive loss to the Eagles because they're the kind of people that you can actually build a club around. So, Bulldogs now have someone like him where they can kind of, key guys like him and Bird and these guys that they can actually build a club around. It's a huge plus for the Dogs.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't a shock when he was awarded the captaincy. Not from anyone, especially after the pre-season we had. We just all knew he was the right guy.
Well, as Reni said, Sunday afternoon footy, and I think it might be just Gus who talked about that a lot over the years. Bulldogs and Parramatta at CommBank Stadium. I'm sure you've been there, but if you haven't, make the opportunity to go because the atmosphere will be fantastic. Sunday Arvo, 4:05 kickoff, and an amazing rivalry continues. We'll talk about that historically a little later in the show. We say goodbye to Luke Goodwin. Thanks very much, mate.
Thanks, boys.
We'll talk to you again next week, of course, about what's happening with the ins and outs and the previews and reviews. But we'll stay with Reni Maitua and Tim Mannah when we come back to Unleashed.
Betting takes you away from the action. It can distract you from footy's most exciting moments. Don't let a bet take you away from the match. Reclaim the game. Be gamble aware.
This week's headlines.
Back to Unleashed, brought to you by Reclaim the Game. We're with Tim Mannah and Reni Maitua. Talking headlines in the game now, and one of which is, of course, in the wake of the Jake Preston alleged hip drop, which was found not to be so much of a hip drop, certainly not worth suspension. We touched on that in the first seg, boys, but generally, do you, either of you, see areas where we can achieve what we're trying to achieve, and that is maximum safety for players in a sport that basically encourages collisions at incredible speed and power? It's really a difficult thing to find a compromise in, isn't it?
Well, you hit the nail on the head there, Bill. Like, it's a high collision game. There's going to be tackles that go wrong. There's going to be, head knocks. But I think the game has obviously put things in place to protect the player. Are we going too far with the protection of the player, i.e. the hip drop? There's probably 10, 15, 20 hip drops a game that aren't penalised or pointed out purely because there is no one that gets injured. First and foremost is we need to protect the players from themselves, as you know.
Yeah.
When I got a head knock, my first, and this goes back to being a kid, my initial reaction is to get up because I'm embarrassed of copping a big shot. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
It's the nature
And the
of the
idea of
beast.
coming off is so foreign, as if you get off for a head knock.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's I don't want the game to be too stop-start. I definitely don't want to turn it into rugby union. There is a duty of care for the players, though.
Rugby's initiated a yellow card rule that can become a red card. Once they get the player off the field for that minimum 10 minutes, there's a review. And then it's announced whether that 10 minutes becomes out in a 20-minute period where the team's
Is
one
that for a
player
head
down.
knock?
Is there anywhere where they can use the card? That's in Super Rugby.
Is that for a head knock or is that for any injury?
It's for any serious offence.
Okay.
Yeah. And I just wonder if there's any way that rugby league can perhaps, I'm not suggesting they go the same way as rugby, but maybe have a look at the way they use cards. For example, Jake Preston was off for 10 minutes. Could it have been a penalty? And I don't know. Then they sin bin him if they determine that it is actually a hip drop or not. I don't know. That sounds to me clumsy, but you know where I'm going. I don't know if there's any way, because it's like the obstruction rule. They had to come up with a physical measurement, inside shoulder or outside shoulder, to try and help the refs adjudicate. But with tackling, as we all know, there is a million different scenarios as to way players fall and collide. So I don't know how you can actually quantify what's going on.
Yeah, it's a hard one. And the thing is, a lot of it happens so quickly. You're not. We'll talk a bit later about Marty, but there's so many things that happen in a game that are unintentional. There's no malice, and just because we're trying to be nitty-gritty with the actual ruling, like if you got touched in the head or a crusher or a hip drop, they're trying to pinpoint something for being wrong when a lot of times there's no damage done, no harm implied, no one's hurt, but because it ticks a box of something that's illegal, well then that's penalised or send him off. So I think they just got to be careful that they don't try to overcomplicate the game and make too many rules that players get too scared to do anything. Because at the moment, even now, when you watch someone backing into a tackle, you watch the poor defenders. They're trying to make a tackle, but they're also scared that their heads. They're not trying to do a crusher, and everyone now is just almost nervous to do anything wrong because they could get penalised.
It's an interesting one. I mean, the other side of it too is that the more regulations, the more the refs have to deal with, and that puts more pressure on them. And we don't want that either. We want to make the game as simple as possible.
Well, the frustrating thing for me, and I heard James Graham speak about it, is that they flagged that hip drop 4 tackles after it happened. It was the 5th tackle, and I think it happened on the 1st. Is that right?
Yeah, it was
something along those lines. So the video ref's still watching something that happened 4 tackles ago. If the ref didn't see it, and I think maybe because the winger stayed down, they reviewed it. Now, if you slow down every single tackle of a game, you'll find something wrong. In every part of the game, you will find something wrong. When something goes down to the 5th, 4 tackle, and it happened 4 tackles earlier, it's almost like, we leave that where it is. It didn't, if they can't pick up on it at the time, then it should be play on.
The other thing too is determining intent. How you can possibly define careless as opposed to reckless, or all those sorts of things. Yeah. Because we all know that players at your level are quite capable of doing stuff that looks incidental, but they had every intention of doing it if they want to. I'm not suggesting that happens a lot, but you know what I mean. Yeah. They're capable of doing that. I don't know. You see players holding each other down. The person who's got the ball will grab a bit of shirt if no one can see it. There was an incident in one of the games on the weekend where a guy got penalised. I thought there was a clear shirt pull there. He had every physical indication he was trying to get off the guy he just tackled, but he still was penalised. It's hard.
And you try and find ways to cheat in a game. It's just the way you do it. You'll always try and hold that player towards you so you can milk a penalty out of it. There's little cheat codes in the game that the players are aware of, and if you can exploit it, then you do it.
Well, it comes back to the regulation. The more regulation you put in, the more rules you put in place for the referees to monitor, the more coaches and players are going to look for loopholes to get around that regulation. So while a lot of teams are going to be sticking to the rules, there's going to be ways to go around it, and all of a sudden you've created another monster, another headache.
And getting back to Jake Preston's tackle, I could understand why the Dogs fans were upset, and there was a logic to the fact that he was clearly, or at least for all intents and purposes, it looked like he was just trying to dislodge the ball. I'm not sure why, because there was 2 other blokes in the tackle, but that's what it looked like. And he was adjacent to the runner's legs, whereas the classic hip drop, you can clearly see they're trying to get the legs to buckle so they can bring them down. But again, what if there's another closer example where it looks like he's affecting the legs directly, if you know what I mean, as opposed to after he's fallen. I don't know where it goes. Maybe it's all just left up to match review.
I actually wonder how much, if you discourage players staying down, I wonder how many of these actually get penalised, because a lot of them are as a result of people staying down. Whether or not it's on purpose, not, but they could be genuinely injured. But because people are staying down and it's getting reviewed, and like Reni said, when you slow down every tackle, you can always find something in most tackles that shouldn't have happened.
Do you think that's coached within some clubs for
hip
players?
Drop? Stay down?
Just to stay
100%.
down. Yeah,
or it was rewarded. It's not coached, but it's silently encouraged. Like, why wouldn't they?
Yeah,
like it could be the difference between winning and losing a game if you get a penalty. So for someone to stay down, knowing that because if now you get clipped on the chin or you feel your neck in a crusher, all of a sudden you're going to get a penalty, and if I don't stay down, we're going to miss it. So I better stay down, make sure we get the penalty, and look after our team.
Don't you just lose so much respect for that player that does it?
We do. Like, I'll watch it now and I hate it. I'll be calling a game and I hate it when I see it.
Yeah.
But they get the penalty, they get rewarded for it.
Yeah.
So it's like we're rewarding behaviour that shouldn't be in the game.
Yeah, I don't want my reputation to be tarnished for a small reward like that.
But this is a bit of an old school mentality now, because I'm watching these young kids and it's celebrated. It's like, they get up and they high five their mates, or they stay down with a crook neck and then they jump up to their feet once they get the penalty. I'm like, you should be embarrassed to do that, but they're all high fiving like, you guys the penalty. So it's.
In the tackle Jake made, I'm sure everyone agrees that was a legitimate injury. You could see the ankle buckle under his body. The question was, it wasn't part of a hip drop and it wasn't intentional. It was one of those incidental things. But we did bring this up last week, actually, on the show about, to what extent you go to make sure the ref sees something that you feel has happened. And as I said, it might be technically a penalty any day of the week, but you exaggerate your injury to make sure the ref knows it's happened. So do you allow that, or do you think it's all should be just, as Reni said, just get up and keep playing if you possibly can?
Yeah, I like what James Graham said about getting the stretcher out. Embarrass them. Get the stretcher out. If you're really down, mandatory stretcher out there and make them get embarrassed. But they've got to address that. Until they start discouraging that behaviour, we're always going to be arguing about this topic, because it's, like I said, it's not getting better. It's actually getting worse because people are encouraged to do it. They have been better with the crusher. So refs are trying not to look at it. They're trying to tell the player to just get up and play it. But players are getting smart now. They're just actually taking that long that the ref has to actually look at the replay.
They grab their neck. They'll wait to play the ball.
They won't play the ball. They're just
waiting for the
At
replay.
the Yeah.
Now, something a little bit different, and again, no suggestion here that this fits in the category that Timmy's talking about. Jordan Rapana, I think it was a stack of stitches after Marty Tapau collided with him on the weekend. In the Raiders-Broncos game. But the thing there was that the Broncos fans were booing as Rapana was taken from the field. Now, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. I think they weren't saying that about Jordan Rapana, but they were booing the decision. Incidental collisions like that, you're running full speed at a fullback or a winger who's rolled on the ball. What do you do? I don't know how Marty Tapau avoids that collision, even though it was an awful result.
It goes back to the regulation. So they made a black and white that contact with the head is going to be a penalty. And there's been heaps of ones that we thought, that doesn't deserve a penalty. The guy's a metre off the ground and they've slipped over and they've collected the shoulder or forearm. That one was a knee to the head. There's nothing Marty could have done to get out of that. But because they set the precedent and making sure that everyone that does get hit in the head gets penalised, they kind of had to stick to it. And Rapana definitely hadn't stayed down. That was a legit injury. Yeah. He's fractured his skull before, so I can imagine what was going through his head at the time as well.
It was Marty's knee.
Yeah, exactly.
I think you need to keep it black and white. If you start bringing in accidental, could have done this, could have done that, you're just bringing in more room for error, more penalties, slowing the game down. You contact the head even though it's accidental. It's a what is a penalty to get 10 in the bin?
Yeah. I don't know about the bin, but he got penalty. The other tough one is play the ball interference. That is an area that is still so subjective. We've got guys trying to get to their feet quickly. As you said, in other cases, they might not be. They might be actually wanting to stay down for whatever reason, but generally you're trying to get a quick play of the ball, right? And, of course, the other team's trying to prevent you from doing that. But then there are times when the tackler or tacklers are realising they could be penalised, so they're trying to get out of the way, but the bodies get tangled up. Does this come back to the point we made in the first segment about there's a lot of the ref's intuition here? Do we rely a lot on the ref's ability to just sense what's going on?
I don't know if there's any other sport in the world where the refs have as much of a say in terms of their own interpretation of what the result can be. Like especially the 6 to go call. Like every ref has a different interpretation of what's a 6 to go, and if you get to tackle 4 and you give away a 6 to go, that's a 10 tackle set, and that hurts. I remember they brought in the 7 tackle set, and I was crying. So it's a big call, and refs have the ability to choose which ones are 6 to go and which ones aren't. And I think the more you give to the ref in terms of their interpretation, the more of a murky line you're starting to create in the game.
How do you create definitions though in a play the ball situation? It's pretty hard.
That one's hard. Yeah, that one's hard.
It's hard, and like we said before, you're trying to exploit every little loophole within a game because obviously getting quick play the balls creates momentum. So you're going to look at any way possible to try and hold the play down longer, grab a shirt. You're going to do as much as you can. So some teams are better than others, and obviously Melbourne are the best at it. Yeah. They've been able to. I want to watch Penrith now. Actually, the amount I've watched them play a live game and. Their ruck, how slow it was, just purely because they just have the perfect technique of getting off players. Yeah. They're just great at what they do. Each player knows their role within a defensive set, and then they peel off slow, and it creates, a 3-4 second play of the ball. So it's finding the best for ruck infringements. I think every team needs to be watching someone like Penrith and and following what they do. And I'm sure Cameron, obviously being here now and coming from that Panthers, he was defensive coach.
Yeah.
He's trying to coach it, because slowing down the ruck is probably the most important part of the game to win, really.
Yeah, but to answer your question about how do you make it easier, I think if they went back to the old system of penalising ruck infringements, then all of a sudden there's a bit of accountability on the refs as well, because they stop the game, you watch the replay, oh yeah, that was a penalty. But a lot of some of these 6-to-go calls, you don't even know, like,
It's too quick.
The game keeps going. You don't even get it. Well, I don't even know if that was a penalty, but there's no one keeping that accountable because there's no stoppage in the play. So the old system actually made the refs a lot more accountable, because they'll stop it, they'll see the replay, fans can see what happened and move on. Yeah.
I mean, wrestling obviously has been very closely looked at in recent years, and there's been a lot of controversy and a lot of media around which clubs do it more than others and all those things, and who started what hold. However, as you were saying, Reni, there's still a lot of detailed coaching going on about how to tackle and how to delay that play of the ball.
I haven't been out of the game a while, Bill, but I've never seen a team so dominant in defence from tackle 1 right through to tackle 5 like Penrith are. Mm. I think they've taken over Melbourne. Like Melbourne back in the day was the team that were doing the wrestling. They hit with intent from the first minute to the 80th minute, from tackle 1 to tackle 6 every week. I think by far they're the strongest defensive side that I've probably ever seen. And it's just well coached. It's obviously Cameron had a big part of that. Hopefully he definitely will be implementing it into the Canterbury system. But yeah, just their contact, their processes. Each player knows their role within a defensive set. I've never seen anyone as good as them.
Their line speed as well, though, because they
speed.
suffocate teams with their line speed. By the time someone's catching it, they're hitting them straight away. So then all of a sudden it makes their job easier in the contact.
Relentless, and each. It's hard to have 1 to 13 on the field that knows their role. As you might have a few that might have an off day or not up for the task. It just seems like someone like Penrith, even though they've had a bit of a slower start, they've lost a couple. They're what they do defensively is by far the best in the comp.
Well, we'll see how much of that Cameron Ciraldo brings to the Bulldogs. Reni Maitua, Tim Mannah. We're talking Unleashed, and we'll be back with more after this from In the Sheds. Welcome back to Unleashed, brought to you by Reclaim the Game. Yes, time to get into the inner workings of rugby league. And in the case of these two gentlemen with us, Tim Mannah and Reni Maitua, not a lot of rugby league these days, bunch of other stuff. Timmy, you're involved in finance now, and please forgive me, but wouldn't be too many rugby league props going into the world of finance, would it, in their post-careers? Maybe rugby union, but
he was always good with his money.
Did he spend much at the bar?
Yeah, he did. He's actually quite generous.
I ended up in finance. When I retired, I worked with the club at Parramatta. I studied my whole career, so I did a business degree, did my financial planning diploma, I'm a real estate license, TV presenting course. So I just kept myself busy when I was playing. And then when I retired, I took a role with the club looking after our sponsors in the commercial department. One of my clients owned a finance firm, and I did a pitch in his office to go on the jersey. It was like a big jump from where he was to go as a major sponsor. And we went back and forth for about 3 weeks. He signed the deal, and the next day he asked if he could meet me on my own, and we met. And he said, "I want to start something with you, and this is what it's going to look like." And him and I got along really well from day one, and I was really excited at the opportunity. And 3 years later, looking back, I'm really grateful that I did do it and jump in, and it's been really exciting. So that's my main crust. In footy season, I'm still got a bit of connection with the sport. So I'm an ambassador with the Eagles still. I do some home games with them. I do some work at SEN Radio, so I'll call some games for SEN. I'll do a show on Fox Sports every Tuesday night, and some work with their State Cup as well. So it's nice to still be connected, but not be consumed by it, which is it's a bit refreshing as well.
To not have to need it, as they say in the classics, which is a pretty important thing for a lot of people. And just before we get to you, Reni, were you approached by the Liberal Party to run for a seat in the New South Wales elections?
Very loosely approached. I had them come to me,
Liberal,
and they asked me to. And like I just mentioned, I've just been involved with this new business, and I'm excited to see that out. That's all. That's what my passion is. So I politely turned it down, but the next day it was all over the paper. So I don't know how I went from one conversation to the newspaper, but no, it never went further than a conversation.
Oh, mate, you're in a much safer place than politics, believe me. In fact, state of origin, test football, it's easier than politics from what I gather. Reni, you're running your own business now, mate.
Oh, I'm managing a business. I'm not running my own business. That's the goal one day. I'm actually managing a cleaning company. We look after a lot of Maryvale, or all of Maryvale actually. So most of my sites are in the Northern Beaches. I've got the Coogee Pavilion and the establishment. And it's funny how it started. I was, as you know, I'm a lifeguard as well, and for Randwick City Council. And a friend of mine approached me and offered me a job, and I said I knew nothing about cleaning, and I had no management skills other than co-captaining Parramatta with Timmy. I didn't do a good job at it, but
I was about to say something about this. We'll come back to it.
And it's been 4 years now. I started with one company and with a new company now, and it's you're handling big contracts and managing up and managing down. It can be difficult at times, but you're only as good as your last clean. So whenever you have a good day, the next day turns upside down, and it's keeping me busy, and it's not an industry I thought I'd find myself in, but I enjoy it.
I was about to mention that. So we spoke about Reni Maitua before, and about natural leaders. Some people just have it, some people don't. Rennie Hainsey and myself got made. So Rennie and Hainsey were made team captains. I was made a club captain in 2013. Is that right? 13?
Yeah, 13, I think. Yeah.
And there's a few reasons. So one, Jared was an obvious choice for a captain because he's was Mr. Parramatta, and he could do what he could do on the field. But there was obviously a lot of holes in his leadership that couldn't rely on him as a sole captain. I definitely didn't have the talent of those two boys, but I'd been there my whole life, and in terms of being the face or the off the field stuff I could handle. Yeah. But Reni was one of the guys who ticked every box that you want from a leader, though. So he obviously can perform. He's won grand finals. He can handle himself on the field. But there was something that Reni had that I didn't have, Jared didn't have, and not many people do have. And it's just this respect and a teammates and teammates can feel that from someone. So when Reni says something, there's a difference between him saying something and someone else saying something because he's got that automatic respect from players. And I always knew whatever he did after football, whether it's cleaning, lifeguard, whatever he ends up doing after that as well, he's got the ability to manage humans in a different level. So it's not like someone talking down to someone as a leader. There was always that respect. And even if he went to coach, I always thought if he wanted to do some sort of coaching, he would be good at it as well because he's got an ability to connect with humans very uniquely that other people can't do it. And he's got a nice way to do it where he can still get his point across, even if he needs to be firm, but at the same time do it in a way that people feel respected. So
thank you.
It's obvious.
Big rap, mate.
Yeah,
all right. You can handle that.
I was going to say when I was talking about Reid before, because Reid's different. Like Reid doesn't have the runs on the board that Reni had when he came to Para. So Reid's one day will probably have that, but there's a lot of similarities with Reid and Reni in that they're so passionate about what they do that everyone around them wants to be around them because they respect them rather than it's one thing to be funny, it's one thing to be a Hainsey, a good footy player, it's one thing to be me who can tick the boxes, but he just had this ability to connect with people on another level. So
thank you, Timmy.
Yeah.
I was going to. Well, my next question was to ask you. I know if you recovered, I can ask you. What did you take from your rugby league days, mate, that you are now applying, to your life after rugby league?
I think I don't like talking about myself, but just to go off what Timmy said, is that I think I just have that ability to be able to connect with my cleaners, with young kids from Nepal, and be able to have the same conversation with a general manager of running a multi-million-dollar contract. I don't know. I've just had an ability to be a bit of a chameleon, just being able to adapt to whatever environment I'm in and understand. I can read a room quite well. I'm still flattered to what Timmy said, and I do take pride in the fact that I can walk into one of my venues, have a conversation, make the cleaners feel respected, and then be put in a room with some pretty wealthy business people and hold my own basically. So I think that's something that I've learned to do throughout footy. Obviously, you're dealing with so many different personalities. I was a different personality, so that's probably one skill that I've taken into my new management role from footy.
It's a very important one too. Whatever walk of life you're in, whatever business you're in, or whatever employs you, there aren't that many people. There are people who do manage up, but they treat the people around them or below them terribly, and vice versa. And it isn't an easy thing to do.
You can't teach it either. It's hard to train someone to do that. It's either you have that ability naturally, like you can naturally connect with people at different levels, or you're forcing it. And if you force it, people around you feel that, like they know.
It's not being fake. It's just understanding the room and who your clientele is, and and the people that work for you. They're working hard, these kids. So I've seen managers manage down quite hard, and I'd never want to be that kind of person. You want to get the respect of the people you're around.
You would have seen the old school, the generation before us that managed as like players in a team. There's always these senior players, and it was just you do. And I didn't mind it because you're kind of learning your apprenticeship. But these days it's hard for coaches because back in the day, a coach would walk into a change room and just spray everyone the same, and just doesn't matter who. I remember Daniel Anderson was my first coach. His face would go red like a tomato. His veins would pop out. And there was one where poor Daniel Mortimer got sprayed 3 times in the one half of footy up at Townsville. By the end of it, it was like this small. But he ended up killing it in the second half. Now you got players that you can't yell at this person. You have to cuddle this person. This one you can yell at, but only on Tuesdays. And it's just like it's just so hard. It's man management.
It's man management, and like I don't want to be that old player that goes, back in my day, or we did this and we did that.
Yeah, it's
just that the world's changed.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate. I saw Wayne Bennett said something recently about how I don't want to say players are soft, but their personalities have softened up. You have to put your arm around them. You can't criticise. And that's probably one thing that would scare me out of being a coach, because I've always been a bit of a footy nerd. I feel like my IQ for a game was a lot higher than my ability. I break down games. I'm a bit like Rain Man when it comes to games. I can analyse things and see where games are going, just like numbers going off around my head. But when I came back and did a little bit of stuff with some of the kids at South and at the Dogs, I just thought I could manage that kind of personality. It's like you're in or you're not.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be that ex-player, but it was just this sense of entitlement that I felt from people that hadn't achieved anything in the game yet, and that was disappointing for me.
Yeah,
I'm hearing that message a lot from players like yourself and those who are in the coaching ranks these days, and those who are like yourselves, not that long retired. So things are changing pretty quickly. I wanted to ask, there's a reason I think why not just rugby league, but of the leading football codes, a lot of ex-coaches and players are being brought into businesses to help basically teach teamwork and camaraderie and, acknowledging the differences between each other and working with them rather than around them. It's interesting how that's worked.
There's so many overlaps between sport and business. Like there's, you talk about teamwork, but then there's also discipline, performance under pressure, teamwork is obviously one, but there's so many things that correlate between sport and business. And as athletes, and I try to tell players that you've actually got a natural head start. Like I know you feel like you're 10 years behind when you retire because everyone's been working for 10 years, but the skills that you've got as an athlete, people haven't learned that yet. People don't know how to push themselves, they don't know how to work hard. The work ethic you get as an athlete, people, like even a bad athlete that doesn't have great work ethic works harder than your average worker. I still remember when I first started working at Parramatta in the office side, the other side, and freaking out because it was 9 a.m. and no one was sitting down at their desk working. They were all still talking on a Monday, catch up on the week. I'm like, but we're on the clock now. Like we're supposed to. So and it was just because that mentality of footy, like it's okay, we're on, get there an hour before, strap 45 minutes before, on the field 15 minutes before. We're starting now. So you just so many good habits you learn as an athlete.
Do you still find that hard to break down, or are you actually working with it and utilising it?
Well, something just as being on time is one thing that used to scare the crap out of me. So, and it's still ingrained into me now that if you weren't here 1 hour before training, you had extras, and you never want to do extras. So I freak out. It's like you had to spin a wheel back.
How much did your stomach used to sink to when you were going?
I'm going to be late. But it's a habit to this day where I hate being late. Being on time is late.
Yeah.
And that's like you just said, it's a basic skill that there's plenty of skills that we learn as athletes that we can take into the workforce. And I've realised that there was a lot of correlation between sport and being able to manage a company. So I've had that opportunity to climb a little bit higher or a little bit quicker than I expected because I had those skill sets from footy. I used to I'm 10 years behind, like, my manager would do this. I didn't know how to book flights. I didn't know what an ABN was. Yeah. I never did my tax before. They're the little skill sets that you miss out on. and that I'd encourage current players to really understand and learn, like yourself. But in terms of learning those skills, like you said, you don't realise going into the workforce how much of a head start you do have on the next person.
You want to run your own business. What are your goals now, post-career?
Yeah, so I'm now a shareholder of this business I'm at as well. So we've got some pretty hefty goals that we want to achieve in the next couple of years, and we've opened up in the last 2.5 years alone. We've gone office in Gold Coast, Brisbane. We bought a 30-man office in Sunshine Coast. We've opened up in Canberra. Now we're doing Melbourne, Perth as well this year. So it's just been a really exciting. And I've been lucky enough to be part of the whole journey. So, the CEO and owner would take me on, all the meetings. I get to learn firsthand what's involved. So when you're buying a business, what do they look for as a seller? What do we look for as a purchaser? How do we make it all win? And I've learned more in the last 2.5 years than I have, in 12 years of study. So that's been really cool. So that's my main passion at the moment, to see that out and see where that ends up. But I love my connection with sport. I love being able to still be involved with Eels. I love being able to call games and still comment on sport. It's a lot easier commenting than actually playing the game. It's a lot easier in the body. Sometimes I've got to remind myself, because when I was playing, you obviously get real sensitive to what people say. So if people in the media say something, you get really cut up about it. And then you jump on the other side of the fence and you say something. And a lot of times I'm just saying it because you have to. Like, okay, give it. I remember last year, it was 2 minutes before we went to air, they said on Fox, give us your top 8 so they can just talk about it. And I just thought, whatever, just give them top 8. But then there's 8 teams out there that are disappointed with my... And I'm getting text messages from people on the bottom 8 saying, you don't back us. And so that's been a real learning curve.
I actually spoke to Braith and Asta about that. I said, obviously you're doing 360 now. How do you feel about going in on players? Because sometimes I think I just don't like the journalist that sugarcoats things and doesn't want to be the bad guy.
Yeah.
And I think Braith, it's like Bill, when we did the Bill and Boz show, I would be very conscious of what I said, because you didn't want that player getting upset. I said something about Hudson Young once when he did and then it came back into the media, and I thought, well, it was a grub act, and I'm just talking the truth. And he's a great player, but I had just commented on the act. So it's a funny mind game that you play with yourself about being in media. Because you want to come across as the nice guy, but you got to give your opinion.
And you won't last in the media if you're always trying to be the nice guy. They need someone that's going to be honest and tell their opinion.
Well, I hate being the nice guy, but I can't find anything bad to say about these guys. So corporate heavyweights, entrepreneurs, Reni Maitua and Tim Mannah, Unleashed. We'll talk about some history between the Dogs and Parramatta after this.
Let's talk about the dog days.
This is Bulldogs Unleashed, brought to you by Reclaim the Game. Now we're going to take a journey through the history books. Reni Maitua, you started your Bulldogs journey. Well, in fact, you as a kid, you wanted to be a Souths player. Is that right?
Well, I'm a Rabbitohs junior, and I was a Rooster supporter. So that didn't go well. Didn't go well in my area. I used to take my mates to go watch Freddie play, because he was my idol. I loved Freddie.
Yeah.
So we'd take him to the SFS, and they'd all be sitting there, South supporters. It's like, what are we doing here? We were 15, 16. So I South junior. I gave footy away. I didn't want to be a plumber. I put the jersey back on. I was playing for South Flegg. They didn't have first grade back then. That's when they were kicked out of the competition. Right. Braith and Asta and I have been friends since we were 5 years old. He spoke to Mark Hughes. They came and watched the game. They signed me. Craig Coleman rang me. I was at TAFE. He said, Reni, I've got 50 grand for you. You're in the top 25. I said, sorry, Tugger, I've just signed with the Dogs. And he hung up on me.
That would have been hard.
Really?
Yeah. Fuming. But, it was probably the best thing was the best decision I ever made. We won the O2 grand final. Thursday kicked it from the sideline in the reserve grade. And then obviously 2 years after that, we won the first grade.
Yeah, that was a remarkable journey. But before we get on to that, how did you start at the Eels, mate?
I actually I played for the Twin Willows Warriors my first year. So I played soccer as a kid, and I played league at 13. I played for the Twin Willows Warriors in the Canterbury comp, so the Bass Hill team.
And you were a Canterbury supporter, is that right? As a
massively.
kid?
So I have relatives, my cousins used to live at the house behind the goalpost here. So they used to always stay on the roof and wait for the conversions, catch the ball, throw it to the backyard. So I used to have a good collection of footies. But my family are bleed blue and white. Like, I used to play for Parramatta, and they'd come to a Bulldogs Para game, ask me for tickets. So I get 20 tickets, come in their Bulldogs jerseys and cheer against me. And I scored a try against Bulldogs once in a semi-final, and my auntie had a whole bunch of people at her house. she turned the TV off and walked out of the room. So, yeah, they're very passionate. They got no soft spot for the Eels or me. But yeah, so I could have been a Bulldogs pretty easily, a Bulldogs junior. But so I played in the Canterbury comp as a 13-year-old, and then when they turned 14, at the time they started playing from Saturdays, moved it to Sundays. And because my parents used to go to church, they couldn't take me to games on Sundays. So they said find the local team in the Para comp that played Saturdays, and went to Guildford and ended up at Eagles Junior. Yeah.
It's amazing how fate can produce these
things. I was at the 2004 grand final. So I was a Dogs fan at the 04 grand final. I went back to the Belmont afterwards, watched the boys on that. But this guy, Tong, Mace, they're all like heroes of mine as a kid. So like, mate, their era was like a special era as me as a footy fan. So when I had, we had Reni come to Para, we had Tom come to Para, so it was like really, I had a good buzz having him at the club. So it was really good times.
You played with JT and Sonny Bill too in those days you were talking about, and well, obviously special players, but there were a lot of special players in that team, in that squad at that time.
Yeah, we had a rookie squad, it was called, back in 2002 when I first arrived. It was myself, JT, Roy Asatasi, Glenn Hall, Ben Harris, all these emerging sort of players that could potentially go on to make it. I think every one of us went on and made it. JT, huge car door ears, real skinny kid. But back in the day when you played reserve grade, you played against men.
Yeah.
It was 8 first graders that had played probably 150 games plus coming back. It was myself, JT. We were up in reserve grade, and it was a tough competition. But you figured out quite quickly who you were as a man and as a player, and if you had it or if you didn't. So you had to do your apprenticeship basically to get into first grade. It was a proper apprenticeship. And not only that, I had some great leaders come back and that I could learn from: Steve Reid and Glenn Hughes, Dennis Scott, the Hughes, Steve Hughes. There was a lot of experienced first graders that came back, and that year Jonathan was just incredible, and he was just doing things, special things, and you just knew what kind of player he was going to be. And Sonny Bill was 16 or 17 at the time. We played the Dragons out here, and again, Chris Lightfall, like some proper first graders. He was like 16, 17. Come on and scored 3 tries here at Belmore. I think his first involvement in the game was on a kick chase. He ripped the ball off the fullback and scored. And we're all just thinking, oh my God, this kid's incredible, because he had a couple of injuries sort of in the SG ball, I think around the flank. So
yeah, he used to play with that black shoulder seatbelt.
So we all had the shoulder. I had one.
That's right.
Sonny had one. Thurston had one. But I would run on the field, and Larry Britton, and then I'd get on the field and I'd rip it off. So Dr. Hugh Hazard, they couldn't get angry. I mean, I was already on the field.
Yeah.
I couldn't handle it. Like, it was just...
It's restricting. It's annoying.
Restricting.
Yeah.
JT used to wear 2 of them.
Yeah.
So the early days were great, and obviously making my debut in round 1 of 2004, not losing my spot after that was special.
You left the Dogs after 2008.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, aside from letting JT go, that's probably the greatest mistake the Bulldogs ever made. But how did you feel about it?
I regret it now. I actually sat the team down before Sonny left. We don't go down there because I supported Sonny and I copped a lot of flack for it. But I actually sat the team down early that season and said, look, I'm going off the rails a bit here, and I'm bringing the team down, and I love this club so much that it's time for me just to move on. I didn't care where I went. I just didn't want to disrespect the club anymore. The club obviously didn't want to lose me, and then it kind of left a bad taste in a lot of the players' mouth. I know some players that I'm really close to, and they were a little bit older, were disappointed in the fact that I wanted to leave, but my pure intention was to stop bringing the club the bad headlines. I was a little bit off the rails. And then, by the end of 2008, there was a couple of things. I think supporting Sonny would have been one of the deciding factors. And then, I was politely asked to leave the club. And you know what? It was coming, and I have no ill feelings towards the club for the way it went down. I wish now that I realised how good this club was, or how much I loved this club while I was here, because we should have won 3, 4, 5 premierships. I think we were all caught up in our own ego just at some point we had success as young men. We're still only 19, 20, 21. All of a sudden we're getting doors open for us. We're not paying for things. I definitely chased the bright lights, and that was, I didn't ever find the balance between my footy and my social life. When I was doing both, but training hard and playing hard, it just was grand final, city, country, New South Wales squad, playing for Australia. And it was all that success in a short period. And then all of a sudden these people know who you are on the street. I always was that social butterfly that liked to have a bit of fun, and I took it too far. And ultimately it cost me my spot here at the club.
And it didn't get much better, it must be said, after that at Cronulla, because it took you a little while to get sort of back on the rails. And we don't need to dwell on that, but that would have been and you went on, and we'll talk about what happened at Parramatta too. But that was a tough period in your career, mate.
Footy became a chore. It was purely, I was playing purely because it paid my bills. It gave me a lifestyle that was comfortable. If I challenged myself and put my head down, I know what kind of player I could have been. And that's not being big noting or anything. I just knew that I had the ability to play well when I was committed. And when I went to the Sharks, I didn't drink for 3 or 4 months, and things were going well. Even though we were losing, I think I picked up about 3 players, and Ricky and I had a really close relationship. He was really proud of where I'd come from, but the demons in the back of were deep down, were still there. And the moment I had a drink, I made a poor decision. I spent 2 years off the field. It was highly embarrassing for not only I could handle it, it's how it affected mum and dad and the rest of my family. I knew what happened. The majority of people don't know what happened, and I came out and said, listen, I'm not a cheat. I'm a party boy. It's simple as that. Whatever was in my system is purely because I was partying. And that 2 years away from the game, it was a slippery 12 months. I've went right off the rails until I just went, bang, I've had enough, jumped on a plane, went to Thailand and just trained in the jungle for a month. And then came back, rang my manager and said, find me a club. I'm coming back. A lot of people questioned whether I'd be able to make it back. It was dark 10 months training on my own because I couldn't train with the team to any capacity until the 2-year ban was up. I can probably say this now because Parra can't get in trouble, but they would send a trainer out to me, Craig Cattery, and I'd go and do the Parramatta sessions in the parks, and then we would go off what sort of times the back rows were getting, and I was way off. And it was so hard to try and compete on your own when you got no one
when you got no one
pushing
you.
You.
Yeah, it's harder.
It was hard. Yeah. And I went to some dark places. Like I'd never trained so hard. I never wanted something more in my life to prove people wrong for who I was. And I came back, played for Wentworthville, got poked in the eye in the first 5 minutes, went off the field, didn't play. Second game, third game, I was like things were coming back. Like my timing was off. I was playing quite well. Fourth game, Brett Camorley calls me and says, you're in the New South Wales team for the residence team. And that's when Mook Steve Kearney came in and said, no, I'm going to put you in first grade now. And this is what I'd been building for. So Friday night game against the Broncos, Parramatta Stadium, coming off the bench, and then what was our halfback's name?
Chrissy?
Jeff
Robson.
Robson?
Yep.
Does his hammy, a captain's run. Reni, you're playing 5'8". Friday night, 5 games, 4 games of reserve grade. And they put me in a hotel because the drive out to Parramatta it's a world away from me. I'm an eastern suburbs boy. And I'm not into all this visualization and stuff like that, but I just pictured waking up the next morning and I'll be on the back page of the paper. Or there will be some sort of headline. And I went out and had a pretty decent game at 5'8", and there it was. There was a story in the paper the next day, and all that work and that 2 year, especially that 10-month period, that I was really proud of that moment to make it back into first grade, and I really committed myself to the game again. The only problem was I was 29 going on 30.
You'd been a first grader for 2 years then?
What is this, 11?
11, yeah.
So I debuted 09, so 9, 10, 2.5 years, yeah.
Yeah, and obviously to come in on the 09 season, which was, as you indicated before, quite a dramatic year for the club. And a strange season in a sense because neither the Eels nor the Storm were in the top two that year. The minor premiership was a battle between Canterbury and St George, Illawarra, and neither of them made the grand final. It was a strange thing. But just before we get on to you and Reni playing together, just that to start in first grade consistently in that first year with that amazing run from, 8th on the ladder, what was that like?
Yeah, it was my first year, so to be honest, I was just happy playing. Like, I was happy just to be part of the team. Halfway through the year, they will come in second last, so it was a pretty poor start to the year. And to Daniel Anderson's credit, he coached us a certain way throughout the whole preseason, and then once it wasn't working, it's very easy for a coach to be stubborn and just stick to it. But he kind of threw the playbook in the bin and changed tack halfway through the year, and actually really worked for us. And for the second half of the year, we couldn't afford to drop one game, or we were out of finals contention. So every game was like a finals game for us for about 10 weeks. And it wasn't until the last round of the year, it was the first time we were guaranteed the final spot, regardless of whether we won or lost. And we were playing the Dragons, and Daniel had figured out that whether we won or lost, we were playing the Dragons the first week of the finals, because it was first versus 8th back then. And to beat first 2 times in 2 weeks would have been tough. We didn't know that, so we get the training. That whole week, he doesn't talk to us. We've got no video. Captain's one was weird. Heine gets pulled out of the game. No pre-game talk with the game at Cogra. And it was just the weirdest preparation. We get flogged by, I can't remember, 34 points or something.
That's right, yeah.
And he came back in the sheds afterwards and go, okay, that's on me. This time I'm going to prepare to play. And it was just like before we even left the game, like, we'll win next week. Like, it was just a weird confidence we had going into the next game. And sure enough, we went out and knocked over, the minor premiers in that first week. So, Daniel Anderson, he gave me my first crack. He's still a coach that I think is an amazing coach. He's incredible. Got us to a grand final, and the next year they got rid of him, which was a real shock. And then Reni comes in at that time where we'll probably talk about it soon, but it was just such a tumultuous time for the club. Like, I look back at our decade there. Well, it's we had 6 CEOs, 4 different boards. I played under 6 different coaches, I think, and it just. Every time a coach comes in as well, they'd have their own idea of what they think is a good squad, and they'll clean out the old squad and bring in new ones. And CEOs come in, and a board will come in that didn't like that the staff were friends with the old board, so that staff will get rissoled out. And we talk about the Dogs. I feel like I was texting Aaron Warburton just last week about how much the club looks like it's on the right direction. I watched them play at Belmore a couple of weeks ago, and that buzz. I just watched on TV, and the buzz watching that, I'm like, that's a club that's got out the other side. And I'm not saying Parra's perfect. There's still things there that they could get better, but it's got that stability now. So it's got out of that, the continuous, changes and all the people that wanted to fight, and that's kind of settled down now, which is nice.
It's fascinating how some clubs do go through these periods, and Bulldogs fans know that in recent years, I don't know if it's been quite as dark as it was when the Eels went through that period you're talking about, but there have still been the same sorts of things, board changes, coaching changes, all that stuff. Reni, it's sheer bad luck really, because despite your individual readiness, as Tim said, that time you joined the team, they couldn't sustain what happened in 2009. In fact, went in the opposite direction, and it became quite difficult. And funnily enough, by 2013, you, as Tim referred to earlier, you were co-captains with Jared Hayne. And yet it was a really tough time, I can imagine. Tell us what that was like.
I think it was like just before Daniel Anderson actually signed me at Parramatta. It was between Parra and Melbourne, and I didn't want to leave Sydney, but moving out to Parra was just as far. Sorry, and as I'll never ever disrespect Parra. They gave me an opportunity. They gave me a lifeline. I absolutely loved my time there. I loved the players. When I came in, obviously I toured with Jared and Hindy, so I just knew a couple of the boys. But I knew the moment I went there from the first few training sessions that something was off. In terms of, I just knew I thought, oh shit, sorry for swearing, but I knew what a successful club like Bulldogs was like. And then when I came into Parra, I saw some little cracks, and I thought, oh, there is a huge leap between being a powerhouse club and where I felt Parra was at the time. time. And I'm not disrespecting the club itself. There was just things that weren't in place to be a winning culture. And it was hard, 2011, the back end of 2011. And I knew and we had a great bunch of guys, but they were just searching for that bit of leadership that was sort of missing. I think with Kalo not being there, and Hindy was led with his actions, but he couldn't lead with his words. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, he was trying to figure out the whole role. Like he's always been the larrikin, while Kalo was always the serious guy.
Yeah.
And then he was trying to figure out, okay, well now Kalo's not there. I've got to try to do that, but I'm still the larrikin, but I'm trying to be the serious guy.
And I think that's where I kind of fell into that role accidentally, because they thought because I came from a successful team that I could be that kind of leader for the club. And I've just had a 2-year ban. I've come back, and don't look at me like. But by the end of 2011, I was sitting in Steve Kearney's office writing plays out for the way we should play the game, because I thought that we weren't playing to our strength with players like Chrissy Sandow. It was just weird. I was like, I'm just trying to find my balance and come back into the game. And now I've been like, people are starting to look to me to be a leader, and I knew didn't want to be that person. I like to be a bit of a larrikin. I like to get along with everyone. But when you give me that responsibility of trying to lead, it was like, this is foreign to me. I don't really want that. So 12 was a tough year. And then 13 obviously was really tough. Being a co-captain, I didn't want it. I asked Ricky numerous times. I said, don't give this to me. I don't want it. Purely because I knew didn't want to be that person. I just wanted to be in my comfort zone. He was trying to make me a better man by saying, hey, these people look up to you, they respect you, have the captaincy, and let's see where it takes you. And I didn't take that challenge. I tried, and it didn't work.
You didn't see him that way, though, did you? You said earlier how much respect there was.
Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it, how the perspective's different.
Yeah.
And not having had that experience that Reni had at the Dogs back in 2004, what was your sense when he talks about that and the cracks that Reni saw in the team? Did you feel that too?
No, I couldn't feel. What I could feel was whenever a player like Reni or a Bo Scott or a Kieran Ford, like someone that had success and had won comps, whenever they came to the club, you could feel the difference between what they were bringing to the club and what we had at the club.
Right.
And there was a big difference. Like we're like, okay, these guys, and we probably were guilty of a club of probably feeding off them too much, like trying to squeeze the juice out of them, because like whatever you guys are doing is different to what we're doing here. So like, fill us in, and that's probably why they try to put him in a role with it, just so they can kind of say, okay, well, this is what we're trying to do. Everyone watch him, and it's probably a bit unfair to him. But like I said earlier, he has natural characteristics that if he wasn't who he was, it doesn't matter how good they are or what club they came from, they're not going to put you in that position because you shouldn't be doing it. But because he had all these boxes ticked that he players respect him, he's a good footy player on the field, he's had success. There was so many things that it was obvious of why they put him there. But yeah, whether or not it's fair on the actual person that doesn't want to do it, I get there's always the other side to it. But we couldn't have had, like, there was no one in that squad that would have fit that bill better than Reni. Yeah,
I think I definitely needed Tim's support. Where he's the professional leader. He's like the ultimate person that every young footballer should look up to. And I was the person that I feel like I've got a really high IQ for the game. I can speak up, I can see things, but my abilities didn't match my IQ. So that's where I sort of struggled with being that leader, because that leader goes out and puts out an 8+ every game. There was games where I just came in and out of, games you do well, games where you just didn't do well. So I needed that support from Jared and especially Tim. It was... The biggest thing for me was I took on the pressure of the club, and we were losing. We weren't doing well. During the Christmas break, I flew to Thailand to keep training. Like, that's how bad I wanted to be a good leader. But I was forcing something that I knew I wasn't. I was trying to force it, and it was detrimental to my season because my body just broke down at round one.
And you spoke publicly a number of times in the past about how it pretty much consumed you at one stage, and it did reach a critical moment where Willie Tonga intervened. Yeah. Was it a gradual thing, Reni, that you found yourself you couldn't get out of, or was there something that triggered it?
It was around the end of it was leading into the Christmas break, and I couldn't keep up with the team in fitness, and I was thinking, I've done everything I can to try and be as fit as possible, eat right, do everything, sleep, and my body just couldn't keep up. I go away to Thailand, train over there over Christmas, come back, body still, and I'm getting run down, and then leading into the, and it just got a bit noisier, and then we started losing, and to me, footy was everything, and it was like, in my head, everything was focused on me. I'm purely responsible for the losses. And I'd, like I've spoken about this publicly, I'd jump in, I'd be at the larrikin in the dressing room having a laugh. I'd get in the car and I'd go home and I'd cry on the way home, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. I'm a man. Like, why is this happening? And then it just got the breaking point. I mean, I think a game against Brisbane when we played up there. There was and do you remember I came in off the field, we got beat, and I just broke down. I was in the corner of the dressing room and I was bawling my eyes out, and I couldn't understand why. And I was so embarrassed by it. And the team came in and they were sort of looking over, and that's when I knew that it was something was, I was in a dark place and self-medicating with alcohol, and made a stupid decision. I look back and I don't talk about it a lot. I'm kind of embarrassed about it, and I don't want to send the wrong message to anyone, because I do feel selfish for getting to that point. The best thing I did, when I can reflect on it, was obviously getting help, going to group therapy, and then understanding when you're not living in the phone booth and you can see from the outside in, you go, what was I thinking like that? No one cares.
That's a lesson you learn when you get retire. So when you're in the bubble of rugby league, and that's a lesson I wish so many young players can learn, because when you're in it, you think that's all people are talking about. My performance. If I have a bad performance, their whole week they're spraying me, they're saying Timmy's this, and if we're losing, they're talking about. You get out of that NRL bubble, and you're like, people watch it, they're passionate about it, but then they get on with their life. It's on the screen at the pub. Oh, who's winning? People don't care as much as you think, and you just get this consumed, because everyone in your world is consumed with it, and you think that's all anyone's talking about. Yeah. And then you can get yourself in a really dark hole where you can think, well, and I went through it as well, where you start losing games. And growing up, we won a couple of Harold Maths comps, and we were always successful as a club. Got to a grand final in 2009, thinking we'll play finals every year. And then when it doesn't happen, you start losing. I didn't handle losing well, so I locked myself in a room for 3 days early in the day, like in my career, and struggle with losses. Unfortunately, I got used to it. So, but it's funny how much of you feel the world on your shoulders as an NRL player when things aren't going well. And I used to be so jealous of clubs that were always winning, because I'm like, it must be just a light feeling to not have this heaviness on you all the time. Like, you're always carrying this. We've lost, and after a loss, the first thing I'm thinking of is it's going to be a long week. I know that we're going to get sprayed in the media tomorrow. They're going to be calling for heads, and it's just going to be damage control for the next week. And
it's hard to shut that stuff out. As much as coaches would hope you can do it and try to do it, and the old
coaches are calling you at 3 a.m. trying to figure out how do we fix it. So.
Well, they say don't read the back page or whatever, all those old sayings, but especially in this day and age, it's everywhere. Yeah. Your mobile devices, it's coming at you in all directions. There's and I stress that Reclaim the Game sponsors this show, and I think a lot of the punters vent if they're betting on the game as well. That's another dimension to their dissatisfaction and the horrible things they say to players. Yeah. But we can talk about that as a separate issue on another time, because we're nearly out of time. And I just want to finish by saying thank you so much to you guys for being so open and honest in what you've said, but also just in conclusion, if you can define, I know it's been so strong since the 80s. I mean, there are lots of rivalries in rugby league, and some of them get hot and cold, but Parramatta and the Bulldogs, at least since the 80s, has been an enduring. It wouldn't matter how bad each club is going. When they play each other, it's still something. Can you guys define that and tell us what it's like? Timmy, certainly from the Parramatta point of view, but also Reni from both sides.
Yeah, if I was a fan, my favourite game was the 98 semi-final. I remember that like it was yesterday. I just loved that whole, being down 18-2 and the way they came back and howling from the sideline. But as a player, I really enjoyed that 09 semi-final. I know that's...
Do you know, that was one of the nearly 75,000 people there. I mean, that is one of the biggest non-grand final
But it wasn't just a crowd. It was when they sold the tickets, they asked who you supported. So it was the first time and only time I've gone to a game where you come out of the tunnel and it was literally split in half. So one blue and white, blue and gold. And because it was a close game, it was just like the raw... You could feel it going one from side to the other side. I reckon they need to do it more, because It was the best atmosphere I've had. Better than Origin, better than Grand Final. Like the Grand Final, people go because they just want to be there.
Yeah.
You know, this game, people were supporting a team and they're all sitting in their tribe. So it was actually a really good experience. Yeah.
It was bred into me as a South junior. I didn't know anything about the 80s or the rivalry of the 90s. I'd come into Belmore and there'd be pictures up on the wall. And it'd be Jim Dimmick, Dean Pay, Potts. And you knew the legacy of the 80s and what those games meant to the club back in those days. So it was bred into you. If you didn't buy in to the Bulldogs culture of the 80s and you didn't hate Para, you didn't belong here. It's as simple as that. You look forward to going, I loved playing at Para Stadium on a Sunday afternoon. Loved it. You just run out, the crowd's on top of you, and it's split down the middle. And it's just, that it's just continual bragging rights for the rest of that year or two you play again. That is the game you have to win. It's a non-negotiable. For a Bulldog supporter or a Para supporter, you win that game no matter where you are on the ladder. 07, I think you won't play 07, Para beat us in the semi-final. And that one hurt. It hurt a lot more than most other losses because it was Para. But then on the other end of it, when I did go to Para, I looked forward to playing the club because I knew how much the club hated Para. So that was a challenge for me. And the boys let me run the team out in 13 against the Dogs. And it was a strange feeling, but it felt good. I thought, I'm here with Para. I think we got beat 7-6 or something like that. But it's a big game for the community. It's a good big game for both clubs. And, it's the game that everyone looks forward to.
My favourite memory against the Dogs was Fui Fui Moi Moi. We got into the sheds after the game. We're in the shower. He takes his Speedos off and a $5 note drops out of his Speedos. I'm like, what's that from? He just starts giggling to himself. And this is when him and Hannett had there was a game where they just went toe to toe. Anyway, it turns out in the video, so he explains what happened. There was a kick chase, and as a team member, your job in a kick chase is to chase a kick and present a straight line with no holes, so you can't give the opposition any opportunity. And what's happened in the video, we spotted that there's a $5 note coming onto the field. He stops mid-kick chase to tie up his shoelace. Picks up the $5 note, puts it in his unders.
I miss that guy so much. Oh,
so bad.
He's the best. Fui. He's still playing.
Yeah, he's still going, man. He's 63 years old, but he's still going.
I've never laughed so much being around someone. Fui, he's a cult hero, and what he does, even that grand final try.
Yeah, that was magic.
Yeah, what he's doing over in the UK, he's absolutely loved.
Really?
Oh, mate.
I can see that. Yeah.
You go to a game over there, and there'd be 7,000 people. It sounds like there's 70,000. They all sing, and they all sing his name. So
that's cool.
I miss the food.
Wonderful memories from these guys and insights. On that note, whether it's a $5 note or not, we thank so much Tim Mannah and Reni Maitua for this week's Unleashed.